Welcome to Twice 5 Miles Radio, fertile ground for conversations worth listening to and remembering. I'm your host, James Navé. This show airs every Friday on WPVM-FM, Radio Asheville 103.7, and KCEI-FM, Cultural Energy Radio 90.1 in Taos, New Mexico. Thank you, Walter Parks, for our theme song, walterparks.com for more on Walter's music. Thank you, Devine Dial, for managing WPVM-FM, and Robin Collier for managing KCEI, Cultural Energy Radio in Taos. If you'd like to reach me, Navé at jamesnavé.com. Navé is spelled N-A-V-E. I'd love to hear from you. If you happen to love writing and would like to be part of our Imaginative Storm writing community, my creative collaborator, Allegra Houston, and I offer a free Imaginative Storm writing workshop on Zoom on Thursdays, 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and on Saturdays, 12 to 1 p.m. Eastern Time. It's a great gathering of writers and people who enjoy storytelling. ImaginativeStorm.com is a place to go to find out more about how to put that pen onto the page. It's free, like I said. We'd love to have you in the group. Today, my guest is Michelle Vanderpas. She's the owner of GracePoint Publishing in Colorado Springs. Michelle and I first met many years ago when she attended one of the Artist Way creativity camps Julia Cameron and I hosted in 1996 at the Mabel Dodge Lujan House in Taos. Michelle and I reconnected a few weeks ago on a Zoom call with Jennifer Pickering. Jennifer and I are working on the Leaf Global Arts Live Life Like a Festival book, and Michelle had been recommended to Jennifer as a publisher. I didn't know the person who recommended Michelle to Jennifer, and yet, when we were on the Zoom call, we did recognize each other, and it was a great, lively conversation. Michelle and I are working together now, along with my creative collaborator, Allegra Houston, and GracePoint Publishing plans to publish some of the work that we've put together. So the collaborations go on and on and on. During that conversation, I really thought it would be great to have Michelle come on and discuss publishing. Go a little deeper into what it means to publish your work, to get your material out there. So I invited Michelle to join us on Twice 5 Miles Radio. And so what I'd like to do now is share that conversation with you. I started by asking her why she thought meaning had value in the world of creative disciplines. And here's what she said.
Wow. Nothing like jumping right in there.
Why not?
It's so interesting because we're not going to get out of where we are by doing the same thing. The only thing that's going to get us out of where we are right now, personally, navigating AI nationally, is creativity. It might mean painting rocks. It might mean working with clay, but that's not all it is. It is a big internal understanding that we have such creative power inside that we can use it to totally reshape in God's image, as you will. But however we want to shape the world, our universe, our perception of what's out there, creativity is the only answer we have right now.
I'm thinking creativity is the essence of the entire proposition. When we say we are made in God's image, and if you think of God's image as infinite and the universe never ends, and what drives it is this energy source that creates constantly, and we're a part of that constant creation, we can lean into it or lean away from it, or lean under it or climb to the top of it, and we'll still be contained within it no matter where we go. So if God's image is the entire universe, it would be difficult to argue that we don't participate in that constant image making and, by extension, meaning.
Absolutely. And we're participating whether we think we are or not. You know, I like to talk about purpose. We're living our purpose, whether we think we are or not, whether we know it, whether we're conscious of it. We are participating in this grand experiment of life every day. We're participating in the creativity. There's a lot of truth in that. What we think, what we perceive, what we put out there to the universe comes back. It's all part of that creative energy. But I want to go back to something you said earlier, which is just how do we navigate like AI and all these things, right? Creativity. It's an essence of intuition, intuition, creativity, spirituality, the Kundalini, root chakra, all these, whatever you want to call it, it's all this infinite energy that we have access to, this power that I think as humans, we've only just started to touch the surface of understanding what that power is.
I think that's accurate. And to expand a bit on that, as humans, we have always been a part of it. As humans now, with the 8 billion of us floating around on this globe, we have arrived at a time when we are required to question into what's always been there. And we now have the tools to take those looks and what appears to be catastrophic disaster. And some people lean in that direction. Other people think, well, all this disaster is just another opportunity to reorganize things. We are at a point where we can take the opportunity to dig deeper into it. So the human species may have arrived at this bridge time.
Can't both of those polarities be true at the same time? So are we going to start talking about all of it happens all at once and no past, present, future, right? It all just is. If all is, and all is just happening at once, and we just happen to be consciously tapping into this moment in time to give us reference, to give us a focal point, to give us a way to navigate, that means we have access to things in the future and the past to both heal and manifest and choose and create and change our life. I'm not sure we know how to do that exactly. Some of us do it better than others.
And do we even need to know how to do it? I'm beginning to think, why not just embrace this idea of that infinite potential? And then here we come back to where we are right now. You are in Colorado Springs, and I am in Taos, New Mexico. I am sitting on Janet's porch looking out on the field. It's the middle of summer, and you are in Colorado Springs, where you work and live at your publishing company. And we are both showing up doing what we do within the framework of our human existence. And we expand a little bit. And I'm happy to think about the notion I don't really need to understand all of those great dimensions beyond my pay grade. I'm sure the universe and infinity will do a great job without my help. I do have a job to do here, and my job is to be in this spot, in this place, talking to you. And on that note, coming down from the great skies above to Colorado Springs, tell us about your publishing company. Allegra and I went there the other day, a couple of weeks ago, to visit with you, had a delightful lunch at your place right across the street, and saw your shop. It's a fantastic building, couple of floors full of publishing equipment. What's going on up there in Colorado Springs?
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I've been in this business one way or another for 26, 7 years, something like that. And it keeps changing, but one thing doesn't change is people actually are still reading books. And that's surprising to people. Paperbacks outsell ebooks and audiobooks still. People are still buying paperback books, which is super cool. So much of it is done digitally now, though. I get people mail me manuscripts, like physical paper. I still get that. And I'm like, well, we can't do much of that yet. I can hire somebody to type it in for you, but we do have to have like a digital file now. We have to have it in Dropbox or Google Doc or Word or something, right? Send to me over email or send to me across the internet somehow. And so we don't have equipment like you used to have. So my grandfather, actually, I used to go in as a little girl, he ran a newspaper and he would set the type. And I would go with him. I'm showing my age here, but I would go with him and set type, and he would do that, and put the letters out and everything. It's all digital now. I have no idea how it works. When we're talking about the universe, all the bits and bytes and zeros and ones, I don't know how it all works, but it magically works. You send me a Word document, we move things around, and boof, then we send it to the printer, and we have a paperback book. It's like magic. I love it. So we don't have equipment here like printers, but we do have staff, our editors, our layout designers, graphic designers, all those kinds of things in our 2-story building. I love it so much. I love coming here. I love being surrounded by the books and the people that all make this magic happen.
When you and I were speaking during our visit into Colorado Springs, and I invited you to come on the show, you said, well, I have a lot to say about the world of publishing right now because I think people should hear it. So I'm
Yeah.
going to invite you to
Yeah.
tell us what's bubbling inside of you that you feel like people would need to know.
Pulling back the curtain a little bit about what publishing really is, I get a lot of people who come to me a month late or a year late, and they're like, oh, I wish I would have found you, because there are a lot of people who have published books, either self-published or used a publisher, and then come to me and say, I got scammed, right? I paid money, I got scammed. Most of the time, they haven't actually gotten scammed. They just haven't gotten what they thought they were going to get. I like to talk about it like the used car industry. You walk in, you buy a car, $3,000 off the lot, it needs new tires, and it breaks down a month later. Well, you got what you bought. You just didn't ask if it had extended warranty. You didn't look at the tires first. You didn't get someone to check out the engine first. You actually got exactly what you bought. You were expecting something different. So what happens in publishing is people will hire a publishing company to publish their book, and they think they're getting editing. They think they're getting social media posts. They think they're getting marketing. They think they're getting royalties. They think they're getting layout and design. They think they're getting a book cover. They may or may not get any or all of those things. But the question that you need to be asking before you turn any money over to anybody is exactly what does this include? Let me see step by step. So, should you pay for publishing? That's one of the things that comes up over and over again. Well, you're going to pay for it one way or another. You're either going to personally pay for editing, so you're going to go hire your editor, just like you might hire your own mechanic, or you're going to pay a publisher and work with a publisher, and you're going to pay them and they will do editing. Or if you go with one of the big 5 publishers, you're going to pay for it in future royalties, right? So one way or another, you're going to pay for it. But the mindset is, I'm not going to pay for publishing at all. I'm just going to go get someone to publish my book. And hopefully I'll even get money up front. Well, if you're lucky enough to get something like $500 or $1,000 up front, it comes from future royalties. And so one way or another, you are paying for it. It's just people don't realize that. And then they think they've gotten scammed. What you do need to understand, though, is what services you need and who is going to provide those. Do you need developmental editing? Do you need someone to check your spelling? Right? 2 totally different kinds of editors, and you don't want to hire the wrong one thinking you're getting something else. Oh, well, they checked all my spelling, but now I had someone read my book and they tell me they don't understand the flow or they don't understand the storyline. That's developmental editing. I had someone create this book cover. They used the photo that I really wanted. It's a fabulous book cover, but now I hear that it doesn't resonate with people. Or why isn't my book selling? And I might say, well, I think your book cover might be out of genre. People are confused about it. It looks like a romance book cover because you put the beautiful picture up that you wanted on your cover, but it's not a romance book at all. And so people are confused when they see the cover, right? And so these are the kinds of things that I like to talk with potential authors about, just understanding. But the other thing is we have people come to us saying, I wrote my manuscript and I can read it and tell it's AI, right? So you didn't actually write the manuscript, you use AI to write the manuscript. Is that good or bad? I don't think we know yet, but it does strip out your own creative voice. So if we're circling back around to creativity, one of the things I like to pull the curtain back, it is not easy to write a book. And you got to dig in. You got to really dig into your own creative voice. You can use AI maybe to give you a writing prompt, to give you some ideas for an outline, to give you some thoughts about where some holes are in your book, but you have got to dig deep and find your voice. Because without your voice and your spark in the book and your heart in the book, it's just going to come across as some other bland paper that we've all read a million times that nobody has any interest in. And yes, you may have written a book, but it's not going to sell because it's your spark, your heart that makes it your book. And so when people come to me and say, I've written this book, and I read it and say, it doesn't have you in it. I need more of you in it. That's a conversation that causes huge personal development, huge self-reflection that's necessary to get a good book out into the world.
Why do you think people feel like they know so much about publishing when they so often have no concept of it? They'll say, I'm going to write a book. I think it'll be easy. I'll dive right in. I have no problem with this. What is it that makes them think they know this complicated industry when they actually don't?
I think it is easy to write a book and publish it. It's not easy to write a good book and sell it. Maybe that's the distinction. Anybody can write a book, self-publish on Amazon. There's a million YouTube videos. Your second cousin down the street will help you do that. It's not so easy to write a book that will sell. And so I think people get the two things confused. Is it easy to paint something? Absolutely. Anybody can pick up a paintbrush and paint, and that's part of the creative journey. And everybody should try that once in their life and explore what's in there. Is it easy to be an artist that sells paintings at $5,000, $10,000, $50,000, whatever it is, right? No, that takes craft. That takes an eye, that takes practice. And it's the same thing with writing a book. I love it when authors have more than one book inside of them because the second one is always better. And so what we think is, I've got this great message inside of me. I'm so alive. I'm so excited about this message. People really resonate with it, but it falls flat on the page until you work with an editor. And offline, when we were talking at the beginning, you were sharing a story about an editor that is, you're there next to right now and hold in reverence. And I think a good editor should be held with the utmost respect because they take your voice, your words, and polish it, make it better, not strip away your voice, not change your words, just up-level them. And that's not easy for a first-time author because what we hear is, I suck. My whole world, I suck, I'm no good, nobody likes me. This brilliant idea I had in my heart, in my head, my editor put the red line through it. It takes us back to middle school. I tell the story when I was 15, I wrote a love story, a romance story for homework. And this is back when you hand wrote everything. And my high school teacher, my professor, took up my paper and held it up, and everybody could see who wrote it because we all knew everybody's handwriting back then, and tore it up and said this was drivel and threw it to the side. And, I didn't write again for 25 years, right? And I think most of us have some kind of experience where we feel like we're going to get that red mark or our whole life will fall apart if an editor touches our work. And we have to, at some point, disengage our emotions from the work and know that our message, our book, is now going out into the world, just like your baby will, or your home will when someone else is building your home, or whatever the metaphor is, and that you need help to make this beautifully presentable to the world. And so most people think they can just write and publish, which is true, but it doesn't mean it's going to be a great book with your voice.
Well, you've done a lot of editing over your professional time. Could you take us a little bit deeper into how that might work from an editor's point of view? A page arrives, You look at the page, the author has written a great deal and put some time and effort and power and energy, and then you approach it as the editor, the developmental editor. What
Yeah.
is going on in your head as you look at this? What are the questions you're asking? And how would you massage it, trim it, form it so that it has the kind of value that would sell?
Yeah. So the first thing I always look for is, and we're talking nonfiction here, just to be clear. I have editors on my team that do fiction books, but I like to read them. I don't edit them. I'm looking for what is the purpose of the book? What is the purpose of the author in writing this book? What is the message? What is it that I can really feel that wants to jump out, that we really want to take and develop that idea? So, in developmental editing, very often, especially with a new author, there's 100 different ideas all thrown out on the page. And we want to take a couple and really develop it. We don't want a bunch of rabbit holes. Think of a good movie. There's usually one or two main characters. There's an arc. There's a hero's journey. We can follow a storyline. There's lots of other characters in the background, but if you start getting too many characters with main stories, it gets confusing. You can pull that off if you've produced a lot of movies. You can pull that off if you've written a lot of books, but as a first-time author, it's very difficult. So what's the main focus? What's the purpose of the book? Who's your audience? Who do you want to read this book? Why are you writing the book? That should come through in a synopsis or the first chapter or the intro of the book. Like the heart and soul of why you're writing this book needs to come through. And then the other thing I'm looking for is, are you showing me through story, or are you just telling me facts? People will write, I saw the aspen tree glowing in the sunshine, right? I don't know, just make that up. And factually, that's true. And they think they're showing us. But really, a different way to say that might be, the sun bounced off the leaf as I turned to look at Sam walking down the road, right? You've got to find a different way to show us rather than just tell us factually. And that's true with nonfiction as well. So we do want story in there. We'll change names if we need to change names. We'll change some of the facts if we need to. Don't worry about throwing Uncle Gus under the bus, right? We'll change all of that if we need to. But at the beginning, you just got to get your heart and soul out. Tell us your stories. Tell us everything that you're feeling. Put your emotion in there. And that's what I'm looking for when I first look at a book.
It's difficult for a lot of people to figure out who they're writing for.
Mm-hmm.
How does one go about that? It's easy to say, oh, just decide who you're going to write for and write for the audience. And yet it's a hybrid question between branding and creative direction, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. What a great way you put that, hybrid question. It's the old three-legged stool thing from those of us who've been around a long time in the sales world. I think Zig Ziglar did it. Who are you? Who is your audience? Who is your client? Who's your reader? And then what do they really want? Right? Not what do they need. Like I know I need to eat well. I know I need to go exercise. Is that what I really want today? Right? So you got to build that bridge. You got to build the bridge. Who am I? What am I here to do? Who am I here to talk to? Am I here to talk to everybody? No, not really. Some people are, but even Oprah had a niche. Brendan Burchard has a niche. Tony Robbins has a niche, right? We're looking at some big, Elizabeth Gilbert has a niche, Maya Angelou. So yes, the big audiences, the whole world maybe knows their names, but not everybody reads those people, right? So you have to figure out who you really resonate with and who resonates with you. Start with, do you have people right now that listen to what you have to say? Probably not your mother, your cousin, right? But do you have a business? Are you a coach? Do you have clients of any kind? Do you own a car dealership? And what kind of people come in? What kind of people do you are energetically attracted to you? Start there. I typically don't have very many clients under 40. I embrace my age. I talk about how old I am. I talk about experiences that we can all resonate with. Most of my clients are even retired or close to that age. And so I tend to write to that person when I write.
Wanting is a difficult subject to pursue. And it takes a bit of courage because often what we want, we might feel slightly guilty about it because we really might want something quite far afield from the things that we are doing in our lives, the needs we're meeting. Do you find that part of the drive to figure out what one wants personally?
That's really interesting. And, we're in a sales conversation, I think, too, because this is sales psychology, which is also writing to your prospective reader. I don't actually really want to lose 10 pounds because I don't really want to do the work that it takes for me to go lose 10 pounds. What I do want to do is fit in that cool summer dress I have, right? And so, how do you sell me that? You don't sell me that by saying, well, we're going to take you off gluten and put you on a sugar free diet. And sorry, you can't have lemonade with sugar in it. And, you're going to go exercise every morning and you're going to switch legs and arms or whatever, right? You're not going to sell me that because most people aren't going to buy into that dream. They're going to buy into the dream of the summer dress. And so, what is it that you can offer? What can you promise that's at the end of the want? And that's sales psychology. So, if you're writing a book about healing, you don't necessarily want to tell people that they're going to have to go through a decade of self reflection and introspection before they get healed. It sounds a bit overwhelming for most of us, even though that may end up being the journey. What you want to tell them is there's light at the end of the tunnel. No matter what you've been through in your life, you can be happy. You can find fulfillment. You can connect more deeply with purpose because that's what most of us want. And in the process, you'll find your own creative juice to be able to go live your life.
So this is what you help people do at GracePoint Publishing. Let's narrow back down a bit, and I would like for you to talk about this business that you have. You're an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
You're a woman in business. And
Yep.
when we were visiting, you also told us about all of the other things that you are doing as well. So even though you are in business, you're in other arenas. And one of the pieces of advice that you gave to me and to Allegra, which I took to heart and really, really appreciated, you said, you have to lean into who you are and be fully who you are in the public space.
Yeah.
And so go forth and do that, Navé, you said, and off I went. Talk about how you approach your own life and some of the categories that you work in and how you've built that out and center it there in Colorado Springs around GracePoint Publishing.
You know, I don't know, maybe a decade ago, we were all taught by coaches and so forth, go be authentic. And I kept thinking, how can you not be authentic? Right? It's like we are all authentic. And I never quite wrapped my brain around it. And I think as that has become more popular to just be authentic and be yourself, I think for me, what that means is not trying to connect with things and people and places and so forth that don't resonate. So I got to be careful here because again, it's that balance, it's that yin and yang that we were talking about earlier. I'm not saying cut people out of your life. I'm not saying, well, I have to have such strict boundaries that my world became really small, because that's the danger of what I've seen out there in the coaching industry. Be authentic, be who you are. You don't resonate with that person, cut them out of your life, and then your world becomes very small and you don't become curious about what else is out there. I think that's a danger of what's happened right now. in the world, we get into a mindset that blocks every other opinion out. I have very deep spiritual beliefs, personal beliefs, ethics, and I'm a publisher first. I believe in free speech first. Will I publish everything out there that's brought to me? Actually, probably yes, because by the time it's brought to me, it's gone through some energetic filters already. Every voice deserves to be out there. Circling back around, being authentic is knowing who you are and being that out in the world so people who resonate with you, who need you, people that you need, you can find each other. It's a very magical process. It's a very magical process. Some people are meant to be public figures. Some people are meant to connect one-on-one more intimately with other people. Some people are drawn to children or elderly or animals or the climate or the trees. There's no one right way. But just because a coach says, well, you have to be on TikTok, doesn't mean it's true. And so being authentic, I think, is understanding how you relate to the world, understanding how you share your love in the world, and then making that your business. So now I'm coming back around to your question. So everything that I do is about helping to empower other people to get their message out in the world. That's how. So I was a foster parent. I keep in touch with a lot of my foster kids. My purpose is to help them be who they're meant to be in the world, right? That might look different than how I want to be in the world, but how do they want to be in the world? And what does that life look like? For my authors, for my clients, how can you be the best you out in the world? And what does that look like for you? So I've created my business around that message.
Continuing with this thread, when one spends time getting to know oneself, which is a lifetime, really, can you speak to the benefit that emerges, or one of the benefits that emerges, which I believe is generosity? So the more one knows oneself, the more you have a reservoir of generosity that you can extend out to others. The connection between those two, what do you think?
I do believe, for myself at least, that the more I learn to love myself, the more love I have to give. The more generous I can become of my time and of myself. That comes from, for me, just age and wisdom. I'm way more loving and generous than I was 20, 30, 40 years ago, right? And the more I'm willing to accept my own flaws and faults and all and the goodness and the good stuff and my strengths as well, and share everything, the more I'm willing to accept all that, the more I'm willing to accept that in other people too. I have a daughter, married daughter. Are they perfect? No. Do I love them as they are? Absolutely. Would I do things differently? Yes. Do I think they're on track? Sure. Or not. But it's their life, right? And that comes from, I think, the generosity that you're talking about. I would see that as generosity of love and just giving of yourself more freely without expectation. And I am not saying I do that well, but I'm saying I do that better than I did 20 or 30 years ago.
And I'm thinking about this idea of the flaws, being generous with our own flaws. I'm wondering, do you have a view of things you thought were flaws when you were younger that now you view as benefits or assets?
My mother always told me I was way too impatient, right? And that I didn't follow through and I didn't always finish things. Yeah, I am impatient. And sometimes that's a good thing, and sometimes it's not a good thing. It doesn't really matter. It's who I am. But I remember feeling brought up very shamed around that. And now I don't feel shamed about it. I'm just impatient sometimes. And that's just the way life is. But sometimes in business, that's a good thing, right? Or sometimes if you're like, we got to catch a plane, that's not a bad thing. And so I see it as maybe something I shouldn't have been shamed about. Is that a bad thing? I don't know. Do I not finish everything? I don't finish everything I start, but I finish some things that I start. I start things, and not everybody starts things.
It's easy to throw out the idea that I am impatient, as you said, I'm impatient. When you said that, I've heard it a million times. I think sometimes I'm impatient too. I just want this to happen right now. I get
Right.
all urgent, right?
Yeah.
Wonder if calling it impatience is the right way to describe it. Maybe it's more enthusiasm for urgency rather than impatience.
Absolutely. It's enthusiasm. I love that reframe. That's really good. It's enthusiasm. It's knowing that something can happen. It's why is everybody else taking their freaking time? I'm ready to go. Let's go. Let's go do this thing or whatever it is, right? So, and you also have to learn to go with the rhythm of life. I'm not saying impatience is good or bad. I'm just saying it's something that you learn to go with the rhythm of life, and you can be impatient all you want, and sometimes that's not going to happen any faster. It's just not.
Yeah, I've never thought about impatience from this point of view until you mentioned it just now. I'm thinking of when I grew up in Western North Carolina. This show airs in Asheville, in Western North Carolina, my hometown. A lot of the people in the 50s would say to me when I aspired to do something way beyond what the folks in the community I grew up in would do, like, I want to be a film director, or I would
Yeah.
like to go climb Mount Everest, or pick some faraway adventure that's way beyond the mountains where I grew up. And they would say, oh, you can't do that. They would get nervous. And
Right.
it wasn't really a shaming thing, but it was more like, well, you can't really do that. And I wonder if that notion of shame around being impatient might have a thread back to the communities we grew up in wanting us to maintain the status quo.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. And I don't know enough about anthropology or sociology or any of those things, but I am sure way back when we all lived in smaller communities, it was imperative that we stay in that small community to keep each other alive and support each other, right? And so some of this is just generational cultural norms that we're breaking through maybe for the first time in generations in totally different ways. We can work anywhere from all over the world in any culture we choose to now. We can go. I talked with someone this morning working in Hungary, right? Just chose to go live in Hungary and work in Hungary. That would have been less tolerated generations ago because of necessity. They would have needed the able-bodied men to stay, except for the few that went off and explored new lands, right? So I think you're right on to that.
And being generous around oneself when one gets to know oneself. So, in other words, I get to know myself. I realize some people have labeled my behavior impatient. I can be generous with that labeling because I understand why they may have labeled me that. I can also be generous with myself and expanding that definition. Coming back as we got close to our time to close, to the ideas of writing books, writing
Yeah.
stories, and publishing material. And you in Colorado Springs do all kinds of work publishing well designed books. I've seen them, they're fantastic, they're absolutely beautiful. And one of the things I admired about our conversation we had when Allegra and I visited with you, you do have a great enthusiasm for strategy.
Yeah, I do.
And I'm thinking the idea of impatience married to strategy makes a power couple.
Well, that was super cool. I love that. Tell me more.
If the house is falling down around you and you would naturally be impatient to try to escape, right?
Right, right,
So
right.
if you put yourself in the position where impatience is driving you, the house is falling down around, or, the universe is falling, whatever happens to be falling, and for whatever reasons, you blindfold yourself and you rely on just your impatience to get you out of the house, you likely will be without much strategy.
Right, right.
Conversely, if you have this drive to do something and you truly are impatient, I've got to get this done. My destiny is calling me. I am going to chase that windmill. And unlike some who didn't catch the windmill, I'm going to catch that thing. Marry that with deep strategy and thoughtfulness with the impatience, and you will get momentum. Whereas if you just stay patient, I'm going to be very patient and I'm going to have some momentum and I'll let the breeze blow me around. Eventually I will get there. You might still arrive because strategy does support patience and impatience, but impatience and strategy, it's a good combination.
I love that. I'm going to own that. Thank you so much for that.
My pleasure. Speak to it a little bit more. Why would you like to own that? And as we go out, we'll make this our
Yeah.
end of the conversation.
Well, I do think most people come to me impatient to publish their book. And if we're bringing it back around a little bit to publishing, there is a natural rhythm of people needing to find their voice and get their words out on paper. And you can try to rush that all you want and it doesn't work. But you can put strategy around, okay, but we're going to do a book launch. We're going to figure out how to sell books. And you can be super impatient about, come on, come on, come on. We got to sell some books here. We got to get this going. The thing that bothers me most about the sort of some of the schools of thought out there right now is I'm just going to kick back and whatever's supposed to happen happens. That's great on vacation. It doesn't work so well when you're trying to run a business. You do need some strategy and you do need to keep things kind of clipping along because if you don't, it'll just fall apart. So there's some momentum, like in a river, that there has to be some flowing or it's going to get stagnant, right? So if we're using a river analogy, you got to keep things moving. So we'll call that impatience.
Yeah, and when we were there talking to you, I asked you about strategy for our imaginative storm project.
Yeah.
And I have been a bit in the weeds around strategy because I think so broad. And you said, well, I will give you some strategy. And you said, what did you say to me? You said podcast and Substack. But how did you say it? Can you?
So I don't remember exactly what I said, but if I were to recreate it right now, I would say, podcasting radio is one of your many gifts. It's a gift. It's also a skill. You've honed it over the years. You're a natural at it. Like follow that thread and go for it and just get bigger and wider and better at what you already do so well, because that will serve you well. If you want to go try to learn Instagram right now, it's going to be a long haul. Like, why? The strategy is really for anybody listening, take what you already do so well and run with it because that's your gift. That's how you manifest your purpose. That's how you live your purpose. It's not your purpose. Podcasting is not your purpose, but it's one way to express your purpose. It's a way for you to express your generosity and your love.
Michelle, thank you ever so much for spending this time with us on Twice 5 Miles Radio.
Thanks, Navé. It's been a pleasure.
And there you go, my friends. Thus concludes my conversation with Michelle Vanderpas of GracePoint Publishing in Colorado Springs. And to finish out our time together, I'd like to turn to something I recorded this morning about my writing process. I was sitting out in the sun. I just finished working on my memoir and thought, why not read a little bit of it? I recorded it, and I'd like to read it for you now. So here it is. You have a writing process. Maybe you have a storytelling process. Maybe you're trying to write a couple of paragraphs. Maybe you are working on a memoir. Generating stories in some way or another. Probably you've had some experience telling a story, generating one, and you didn't know you were even doing it. A memoir vibe story. Like the time when you were in a cafe with a friend and the friend asked you to tell about a trip you took or tell about a time when you had a romantic weekend and you just dropped into the story and you told it. And when you tell stories, you don't just tell one narrative line. What makes a story work are all of the details that go into the story. And it's one thing to tell a story in a cafe over a cup of coffee or over a dinner or dessert after dinner's over. And it's another thing to allow yourself to have the patience to generate material on the page. On the page really means finally, after it's all said and done, you got something written down like I have here. So what I'd like to do this morning, and you hear the meadowlark over there, it's summertime here in Taos, New Mexico, actually Arroyo Seco, New Mexico, 12 miles north of Taos. And the meadowlark's out here every day singing away. Maybe the meadowlark is telling a story. What I'd like to do is to give you a sense of the way my work unfolds and how when you sit down to generate work, you can do it in a million different ways. I tend to generate it longhand. Hardback journal. I do it with a fountain pen. I do that because it defaults me back to another time when things maybe were not any more or less complicated than they are now, another time when there was no digital space. People sat in the morning and jotted things down. It may be just a myth for my own delight. So today's July the 16th, 2025, in northern New Mexico. It's a little road, driveway to the end of the line, and here we sit. So I'm going to read what I wrote this morning. I haven't read it before. I just wrote it. And the purpose of this is for two reasons. One, I'm recording it so you can get a sense of what my process is all about. And I'm also recording it because I will take the sound file that's part of this video, drop it into a radio editing program called Hindenburg Journalist, and get the sound file. So I'll have it as a sound file as well as text that's on the page, handwritten, and then I'll take the sound file and I'll drop it into an AI system called sonic.ai. So I'll transcribe it verbatim, and then I'll have the text, so I won't have to type it. So this entire process happens on the page with a fountain pen, me just musing over a period of an hour or so, maybe a little longer, an hour and a half to do this, taking my time. It's a bit like slow food. And then transcribing it by way of the digital space, coming up with the text written out as if I typed it. I will say I learned the keyboard when I was in the 10th grade, and I'm very happy that I can type, but I prefer the ink and the flow. I think of my pen as a magic wand. So this is what I wrote. I'm thinking about this as a memoir, and I'm exploring the idea of sitting down in the morning and telling the story, working with the story, and really not giving much thought to where it's going to go, more paying attention to what's coming right now, bubbling up from my memory. And so here it is, on the theme of looking at the moon, which I once did when I was 7 years old, when my father bought a brand new telescope, and we would stare up at the rising moon, and I would dream about what was on the moon. So here it comes, the story I wrote today. To this day, when I see the moon coming up over the Carolina mountains, at Lake Eden in Swannanoa, North Carolina, or over the East River in New York City on a clear November evening, or glowing full above the ridgelines of the Sangria de Custo Mountains north of Taos, or the Pont des Arts Bridge, which crosses over the Seine in Paris, or in the high dark sky above Manila in BGC, Bonifacio Global City. I don't care where I am in the world. I always go back to those nights, all those years ago, when I watched the moon through my father's telescope. Through the lens, the moon was up close and personal, creamy, comprehensive, as it filled my right eye with its ivory ridges and craters that reminded me of nothing I knew of back then as a country boy who had no idea the same smooth ivory texture was on display, bone-white pearly, moonlight tones on display at the Louvre in Paris, which was officially opened on August the 10th, 1793, with 337 artworks on the wall, like the Venus de Milo, which was carved in 150 BC. Venus de Milo's famous for her missing arm and timeless elegance. Then there was The Psyche Revived by Cupid's Kiss, which captures the tender emotions that someone must have felt when they wanted to be revived back into a love they had lost. Lover's skin seems translucent in your memory on those afternoons when you think about love in the wee hours of a warm night. Like I said, I had no idea those statues in the Louvre existed back then, nor did I know anything about Paris or New York or Manila, but I did know something about the cars going back and forth on Brevard Road during 1957. And I did know that there were country tunes on the radio, and the local DJ, Scotty Road Armor, aired those country tunes in the mornings on his radio show, which was on WWNC 57.0. WWNC means Wonderful Western North Carolina. Scotty Road Armor talked about music and weather and gave us road updates and read the farmer's report from the local newspaper and told us all about the country music he was playing on the radio. I've always loved country music because my father was an old-time Appalachian player. He sang songs like Deep Ellum Blues, which was not really Appalachian. That came from his World War II experience. And there was also Old Joe Clark and Orange Blossom Special and the Alabama Jubilee. These were country, and I was country. And as far as I was concerned, they were just fine by me. In 1957, when I was watching the moon, some of those country hits on the radio were Gone by Ferlin Husky. It's about why the moon is sad when a lonely man cries, or Johnny Cash sang Train of Love, about a woman with a broken heart who told lies. And then there was Patsy Cline's Walking After Midnight. You guessed it. She's in love, and she's walking in the moonlight. And then Bonnie Guitar's Dark Moon. The moon always goes dark because she's lost her love. For Bonnie, the moon no longer reminded her of the ivory nights that I'm thinking of, but of the broken things that come when love empties out into a wasteland of despair, which is the best I can do in composing a country song, because I gotta face it, I am no Patsy Cline, nor will I ever be. So how could I have known in 1957, listening to Scotty Road Armor talk about all those country songs, that those songs would have something to do with Venus de Milo and Cupid's Kiss? Of course, what I know now, and didn't know back then, that all of those country songs Scotty Road Armor talked about and played on WWNC, and all of those statues in the Louvre, or most of them, they more or less address the same universal themes we've always been looking at all our lives, and probably always will be. So there it is, the story that was inside of me that wanted to come out today, the end of my morning writing. So now I've read it, now I've recorded it, and now I will take this, transcribe it, and then I will edit it and work it and noodle it and come up with ways to say it. So the process between waking up in the morning, making a cup of coffee, sitting down at the page, and generating the work is the way I go about it. You may have a very different way of doing it than I do, but that's how I do it. It's really satisfying just to sit here and finish it out, recording this video for you. Maybe you will get some ideas from this on how you can go about telling your story. And you don't really even have to write it down. The most important person in the world is the one right in front of you. If somebody asks you to tell them a story or give them a sense of where you're coming from, feel free to do that. And then the best part of this is, after you tell your story, ask them to tell you their story. And they'll do the same. And that's why conversations are so delicious and delightful in the late afternoon over a cup of coffee anywhere in the world. So there you go, my friends. Wherever you are in the world, we are now at the end of the show. So I'd like to say thank you ever so much for listening to Twice 5 Miles Radio, fertile ground for conversations worth listening to, and remembering I'm your host, James Navé. Every weekend, this show airs on Community Radio, WPVM-FM in Asheville, and KCEI, Cultural Energy Radio in Taos. Thank you to Devine Dial for managing WPVM-FM, and Robin Collier for doing the same, Cultural Energy Radio in Taos. If you'd like to reach me, Navé@jamesnavé.com. I'd love to hear from you. I'd like to thank Walter Parks for our theme song, walterparks.com for more on Walter's music. If you'd like to engage your own writing, maybe you are working on a memoir as well, my creative collaborator Allegra Houston and I offer a free community gathering of writers on Zoom every Saturday, 12 to 1 p.m. Eastern Time, and every Thursday, 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern Time. You can find the link to that free Zoom workshop and gathering at imaginativestorm.com. So once again, thanks ever so much for tuning in, being with me for this past hour, and I hope you come back sometime very soon. Until then, I'll catch you on that turnaround somewhere down the line.